Morning, one and all. Welcome to Leaders Connect, an online leadership community where leaders create more leaders, which is a CSR initiative by Bija Training, organized by the Mask Leadership. My name is David Selvaraj, and I'm into facilities management. Leaders Connect started with the specific objective of creating 1,000 plus leaders, where all the working professionals and business people share their real-time challenges on our website, www.themaskleadership.com. This could be on either leading self, leading others, or leading their business. We see all the challenges, filter them, and every week on Wednesday, we invite a top management leader from a corporate company who will be giving solutions for our real-time challenges on leadership. That's when we call it Leaders Create More Leaders. Currently, all are muted, and we will be giving you an opportunity to speak to our guest, Mr. Rajesh M. He is DGM Talent Management from Omega Healthcare. But before that, let me also share that we are currently live on Facebook. And this episode, Leaders Connect 55, is being recorded. For the visitors who are joining the first time, you may also click on the WhatsApp, Facebook, and LinkedIn link on the chat box to get the updates on weekly basis and join us in creating more leaders. So, are we all ready to interact with our guest, Mr. Rajesh M., on the topic developing success? If yes, please type S in the chat box if you are ready. Thank you. Now, before the introduction of the guest, let me also take the privilege to introduce founder of the Leaders Connect, Mr. Prakash Sharma, who will have interaction with our guest initially today, along with our panel discussion leader, Mr. AMS Reddy from HR from Dodla Dairy.
Great. Thank you very much, Mr. David, and welcome, Rajesh, for our Community Leaders Connect. It's been a privilege that you have been here with us.
So, thank you very much for having me, Prakash. It's indeed a pleasure as well to be here, part of this one amazing set of people. Thank you.
Thank you very much, and that's been really great. So we will be going ahead. So David, I would request you to share more deeper details about Mr. Rajesh, his personal details, as well as the professional video. So please go ahead, introduce Mr. Rajesh, and then we'll go ahead.
Well, now it's my privilege to introduce about a guest of honor for the week. We are honored, Mr. Rajesh, especially you're coming from the healthcare. Healthcare has been in the limelight for the past about 2 years, and we're really delighted to have you over. Mr. Rajesh M is his name. Spouse name is Divya. He's got 2 daughters, Varsha and Rakshika. His hobbies are meeting people and gymming. Well, his favorite sport is badminton. He is located currently at Chennai. His LinkedIn profile he is shared on the chat box. Feel free to connect with him. To get to know more about his professional experience, let's watch the video.
Yes, so thank you all and welcome Mr. Rajesh and all the members. Please do type welcome Mr. Rajesh on the chat box. And Mr. Rajesh is here for us for the specific topic to discuss more details on developing successors. So Rajesh, once again, we welcome you.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Prakash. And thank you, everybody. This has been the warmest welcome I've had in quite some time. So thank you for all the kindness. And Mr. Selvaraj, that was very, very nice of you to, give a quick introduction to the audience as well. So good evening, everybody. I'm here to discuss with you some of the key elements that we, practice as well as research thoroughly in terms of building successful leaders. So yes, I'm open to discuss everything with you guys today.
Thanks very much, Mr. Rajesh, for that. And in fact, for all the members as well as the visitors who have come here for the first time, we request you to kindly turn on your cameras if possible. That will be adding value, and we can stay connected so that we're able to see each other and be much more interactive. So to go ahead, then definitely, yes, there are a lot of challenges with respect to successors. I'm sure as a leader, we all keep growing. And do we really are able to create successors for us to go to the next level or elevate ourselves is becoming challenging. So to understand those challenges is where we would invite Mr. A.M.S. Reddy from Dodla Dairy, who's going to share a couple of questions on behalf of our community to our guest, Mr. Rajesh. And they will have a quick panel discussion. So feel free to interact and discuss and learn more. So we welcome Mr. A.M.S. Reddy here. So Mr. Reddy, so please do go ahead. And I'm sure I'll be able to add you on here. Kindly turn on your video, sir, so that I'll be able to add you on here on the main stream.
Hello, Mr. Prakash, am I audible?
Yes, Mr. Reddy, you're clearly and very much audible. So kindly turn on your camera once, sir, so that we'll be able to put you on spotlight as well. Great, thank you. So let me share.
So am I appearing now?
Yes.
Sorry, Prakash Garu. See, if I keep this instrument aside, I could not hear your voice. So you cannot see my video. I'll keep it like this.
Okay, then kindly turn off your video and then you can be able to listen to the voice. Then that will be helpful. Yeah. I understand you're outside, correct?
Yes, sir. I have turned on my video. I'm in a taxi now.
Yeah. Fine. Stay safe, sir. Otherwise, that's completely fine if it's going to take a little longer time. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm okay. I'm okay.
Please go ahead with your question, sir. So to all the members, let me share with you, Mr. A.M.S. Reddy also had certain challenges on this specific point. So that's how we invite our people as panel discussion leaders. The challenges whom we are facing, who are key people are facing certain challenges with respect to leadership, we invite them to ask those challenges to our leaders that directly here. So A.M.S. Reddy, completely fine. We can keep the video off and you can go ahead with asking the question about this specific topic, developing successors. What are those challenges which you are facing or your company is facing? Please feel free to ask Mr. Rajesh. Yes, Mr. Reddy.
Thank you, Prakash. At the outset, I would like to convey my sorry, that I could not properly connect. I'm traveling. So thank you, Rajesh Garu. Nice interacting with you this evening. And my first, I would like to understand what is meant by succession planning or developing successors. And does it require only for large organizations or for smaller business also succession planning is required?
Okay.
That's a very good question, Mr. Reddy. And don't worry about apologizing.
Yes,
I think we appreciate your commitment. Despite traveling, you're taking the effort. So that's great. Sign of a true leader, I must say. All right, that's a good question in terms of succession planning. So what is succession planning? In our organizations, the predominant challenge that we have is we groom a lot of our employees. We invest a lot of time in training and developing them, and then we get them to a certain stage. Now, what happens is these employees start performing really well and then start directing people, delegating work, deriving results, and so on and so forth. But what happens after that When this employee grows out of the role, is there a replacement? Most organizations go the reactive way. Every time a leader is moving out of a certain role, we roll out internal job postings. But that's a story of the past. What we at Omega Healthcare do is be a little proactive. We focus on all the key talents, which is high potential folks who could probably take up the role of the leader that they are working with. And we create capsules which ensure that these people who are identified as high potential folks are groomed on a periodic and a measurable manner to ensure that they are put into a pool of ready to occupy role kind of a resource, right? So that's more of succession planning. Is it required for small or big organization? I think every organization should plan ahead. And given the kind of test that nature has put for us, the market is open. Anybody can leave us anytime at this point in time. It is all about creating that kind of affiliation, and succession planning gives that strong affiliation to all the employees to be associated and feel affiliated. And that's really worked for us.
Okay, nicely explained. Okay. So you're saying it is for all roles, it's not only for senior roles. I mean, it should be
Absolutely.
done in it should be
Absolutely,
done.
yes.
Okay. Thank you, sir. And secondly, I would like to understand what are the various factors to be considered in selecting a successor.
No, I think quite a lot, but in a nutshell, one of the few things that should be taken into consideration, again, that's a wonderful question. What are the factors? Because again, everything has to be tangible and you need to put those levers together. So the factors that we consider, to ensure that people are fit to the particular role is to first things first, identify the competency levels identified for each role. So we get into a little bit of a competency mapping exercise with our high potentials. And what are these high potentials? These high potentials are people who have not just performed in a particular role, but also displayed the right behavior and the mindset that is required for future roles. So that's how we categorize people into high potentials. So we map that competency, we identify those gaps, and we take them through a structured development journey.
Sir, competence in the sense for all the roles, similar competencies or role-wise competencies?
Again, a very good question. These competencies will be different, the levels will be different, but competency mapping is just one way of looking at it. We also have to look at the tenure of the employee. We have to look at the domain capability of the employee. We'll have to look at the scalability of the employee. We'll have to understand what is the kind of role these employees want to play. Today, we are dealing with a generation where people don't want to be prescribed a developmental journey. They want to own that developmental journey. So while you and I can sit down and plan all this success, this gentleman or the lady may not just be interested in what we're offering. They'll say, oh no, I'm happy with what I'm doing. I don't want to move ahead. I've heard a lot of people say that. Because mental fatigue is also a factor. So we'll have to consider all of that. And, it needs to be a mutually contributing process of development.
They should also agree to that, and we should all have role-wise. Okay, got it.
Absolutely.
Okay. Sir, and I would like to understand, are there any tools or steps to aid better management of succession planning?
Absolutely. Like I mentioned, assessment centers are one of the most efficient tools to understand, the key competencies and the gaps of each of, these people. The other thing is also more of tangible results is conducting a 360 assessment also. Now, 360 assessments will also help you understand from a holistic standpoint in terms of whether your stakeholders want this person to move to the next level. Are your understand what are your desired client ratings, understand what is your expectation of the client. So what we do is we get a holistic picture of people in terms of how they grow, what should they be developed on, and what should be, the expectation from them. So 360 is also an amazing tool that you can use.
But organizations like smaller organizations, so where the proficiency of doing 360-degree and all may not be there if they are not handy with this kind of interventions. How do we go about it?
Very, very, very good question, Mr. Reddy. So rightly said, not all organizations are going to have, full-fledged 360 mechanism. So you can use various other tools like scorecards. You can look at, your priority matrix. You can look at your scalability matrix. You can look at your cross-versatility matrix. What are these things? These are things that you use to ensure that are people versatile enough to work in different departments? Are people versatile enough to work in different roles? These are tools that we use to tangibly explain our observations.
Okay. Does this include even assessment center? Also,
assessment centers is something we should definitely do to identify competency gaps and build a proper structured developmental journey. But outside of that, a lot of organizations that I know, a lot of counterparts in my previous organizations that I work with, look at replicating the competency framework. So they have standard workshops defined for each role. So all you have to do in a simple way is, if at all you feel the organization is not structured, we don't have access to all these tools. In very simple steps, what you can do is try and decode your competency framework. Understand what are the levels of competency required for each role. Don't go by designation, because designation will become a common problem that you're addressing. You will end up boiling the ocean.
Okay. Role-wise competencies.
Absolutely. So you need to have a role-wise competency defined, build capsuled training programs. Now, again, there is another challenge you might have, Mr. Reddy. Not many people will be interested. It's just a soft skills program, not a leadership program. I'm not interested. So there needs to be an incentive or an aspect where you tie it to their performance and their growth for them to be interested in this. Once you get them there, the programs need to talk for themselves.
Okay. Maybe are we to link this career planning and this one, sir?
Absolutely. What we've done, and that's a good question again, Mr. Reddy, what we've done is simply gamified the entire learning piece. Learning is a part of their scorecard. Learning is a part of their growth pattern. Learning is learning benchmarks. We call them learning benchmarks. They have to have a set learning benchmark to even scale up the ladder. Tomorrow there is an opportunity. You need to meet that benchmark.
Okay. Role-wise learning benchmarks.
Absolutely.
Oh, great. Okay. Thank you for, that was clearly explained. And I would like to know your message to the entire members and the community.
Yeah.
So
maybe
what is
that
it?
question we'll ask a little later, Mr. Reddy. So that will add value. There's a part of end. So good, excellent questions asked, Mr. Reddy. I'm sure about succession planning, you would have got more clarity. For all the members also, thanks, Mr. Reddy. We will ask you a couple of more points. If you still have, feel free to ask. Yeah.
Okay, done.
Yeah. So for the members as well as the visitors who are here for the first time, yes, definitely now is the time where we also can feel free to ask certain more questions respective to succession planning or developing your successors. A few people are working in corporates, few people are doing your own businesses, and I'm sure the whole objective here is how do we actually develop our successors so that the business is not getting affected without a lack of a manpower. And how that's what is being done is what Rajesh was sharing it. So Rajesh, any quick examples you'll be able to share that will be helping examples with respect to what are certain competencies at what level? For let's take an example, a leadership level, let's take, and what could be certain key competencies where we see such leaders so that such competencies and how it could be aligned, we'll be able to understand much better. Is there any examples can we share, Rajesh?
Absolutely. And that's again a wonderful question. So some of the things, probably I'll just share some of our experiences that we've had in terms of developing successors. So we've had a specific intervention to develop our associate directors, to move up to a vice president level. Now, what we've identified is there are some competencies that you can coach. There are some that you will have to, have at a certain level for them to move any further. So, for example, we've had integrity. We've had driving for results. We had, self-driver. We've had transparency. We had communication, right? So all these are at a certain level that we wanted our associates or employees to be. What we did was, again, we did a thorough mapping exercise to understand where they stand in these competencies. We applied psychometrics, we applied developmental centers and so on and so forth. Sorry, assessment centers and so on and so forth to understand these gaps and develop them. 360 has always been our tool, go-to tool, where we always seek feedback. We always go in that check-in, check-out format. We always go back to the clients, check with them. Are these people? At the end of the day, these are the face of the organization.
Okay.
True. So 360 has worked wonders for us as well.
Wonderful, wonderful. So that means thanks for sharing a couple of competencies here. Yes, Mr. Reddy, you have a point to share here?
Yeah. See, Rajesh Garu, you mentioned that it is better to inform the person that he is under succession planning, and then he will say whether he is looking forward for that or not. Again, when
Absolutely.
there is a if a leader is there under him, 4 or 5 sub-functions are there, and if one of them, if the leader selects him as a successor, and what will happen to others, and they all will be putting down their efforts, and they may say, okay, you get all things done from him only, because now you have selected him as your successor. So I have 5, 6 reportees, what will happen to them? How do I manage?
That's a very, very good question. That's one of the problems that we will end up, I wouldn't say problems, I would say some of the people challenges that we might come across.
True.
The moment you start identifying high pods, you will always see that people will feel a little flattened by that exercise. There will be a lot of need for counseling. However, this is a completely merit-based exercise. When you are creating a pool of people, which is specifically for high potentials, these are tangible, measurable results that we're talking about. And this is more of a culture of the organization, and we consistently have to maintain it by recognizing these high pods. You will have to create various avenues where the organization constantly is looking up to these people. You have to constantly show these people in the limelight so that people want to be a high pod. Why should I be a high pod?
So,
like you rightly asked, Mr. Reddy, I could be an average performer, get my salary, and go back home and rest in peace.
True.
Right? But why should I be a high pod? What's in it for me?
Got cut.
I was just saying, Mr. Reddy, that can you hear me now?
Okay.
Is this any better?
Yeah, now we are audible.
Okay, wonderful. So I was just saying that it is, why should an employee feel that they should be a part of a high pod? Why should they do that? They can simply say, I will do my average work. I will go back and sleep. Why should I work extra hard? That's where you have to create that what's in for me element. And this succession planning is that. It's not just about the additional monetary benefit. The employee, an average employee, has to feel that if I work hard, I will grow in this organization.
That's excellent.
Okay.
I hope I've answered your question, Mr. Reddy.
Yeah, I got the answer. Thank you.
Great, great. Thanks very much, Mr. Reddy, for asking these specific questions, which also brings out the answers for most of the other people. You might have thought these questions to ask, but yeah, a few maybe Mr. Reddy has asked. But still, if you have more questions on real-time challenging questions on these developing successors, so just think about your own company where you're working, or the company, the businesses you're doing. Are really we having successors readily available? That means if a person is going to leave, even at a senior level position, are really people are there to support the next level immediately? And most of the times what happens is most of the people we are only taking or hiring people from outside. That means what happens, just for a thought process for all the members and visitors here. If a particular person is actually a designated level, is going to leave a company, organizations are structured in such a fashion that are there people from outside who can take up over the role. But have we defined more clear-cut competencies within our team where we'll be able to elevate those people to the next level of positions? Are those really planned? And those are called the succession planning or the developing the successors. I'm sure most of the companies are still working on it. And I'm sure even our companies also. So just think, a question to all the members here, type on the chat box. The question is, in your respective company where you're working, do you think developing successors are given more importance? Yes, no. Kindly type them in the chat box quickly, please. That will help. So in your company currently you're working, do you think developing successors are given more importance? Type yes or no. Kindly type in the chat box. That will help us in understanding more about your ways of how your companies are operating as well. Yeah, thanks Rangarajan for sharing it. So others, quickly feel free to share your answers on the chat box. That will add value more. Great, thanks very much, Devarayan. So Prabhakar says, no, yeah, that could be a mix. So, but still, we will be working on. So these are the aspects which we need to start really thinking about how it could be. So thanks very much, Rajesh, for really enlightening or giving more clarity about how the developing successors can happen. A couple of points which you've shared. So let's take 2 more minutes and we're going to conduct a quick quiz for all our members and the visitors now, and then we'll come back to you, Rajesh. Is that okay?
Sure, absolutely.
2 minutes of your time. Thanks very much. So members and visitors, now it's a quiz time. So for what all the answers you might have learned, we'll have got a lot of information from Mr. Rajesh. For let's see who's going to take up this particular quick quiz and who's answering this quiz question correctly. And the people who are going to answer the quiz question correctly, today we have one more surprise where Rajesh was talking about a 360 degree. So today you'll be getting the Mask Leadership 360 degree assessment as complimentary. So for conducting the quiz, I would request Mr. Rangarajan to be a part, or do invite Mr. Rangarajan from Nash Industries. He heads the production at Nash Industries. So yes, Mr. Rangarajan, I would request you to kindly unmute yourself and then over to you for asking the specific quiz question. Okay, Mr. Rangarajan. Okay, I believe he is yet to be unmuted. Okay, nevertheless, so in the meantime, let me take up the quiz question from my side. And Rangarajan, once you're back, you do let me know. Okay, so all the members and the visitors here, the question is going to be very simple. The question is, in fact, I asked Mr. Rajesh about certain competencies in an example as what could be certain competencies at a vice president level. And Mr. Rajesh had shared a couple of competencies. What are those competencies? If you can just name them, that will add value quickly. So there were 1, 2, 3, 4 competencies highlighted. Okay, Varsha says integrity, driving for results, transparency. Okay, Varsha, great. You came very closer. And David is also shared much more. Good, David. That's wonderful. So let's see who all have answered all the 4. Let me just take it up. Aruna says integrity, right? But all the 4 is integrity, driving for results, transparency, and communication. So the person who has done all the 4, right? He said so is Varsha, and then before that we have David Selvaraj. Wow, excellent, David Selvaraj. So yeah, you get to know that from the chat box, able to see all the 4 at one shot you wrote. But after you that Varsha wrote the last one, communication separately. But nevertheless, both get the Mask Leadership 360 degree assessment as complimentary. Congratulations, David. Congratulations, Varsha, for getting this Mask Leadership 360 degree assessment. Great, great. So thanks very much, all the participants, for all the members for in fact sharing your views or typing on the chat box as well on the answers. So before we go to the next, then I would request maybe other participants, now is the time, all the members and visitors, if you have any questions to ask Mr. Rajesh, two ways of asking questions. One, either raise your hand and we give you an unmute option and you can ask the question to Mr. Rajesh directly on the specific topic, developing successors. Or number two, type your question in the chat box and then we will take up the question to Mr. Rajesh. So I believe David wants to ask a question, has already raised his hand and his video is on. So members whose all video can be turned on, that will be appreciated much more. So yes, David, over to you for your question.
Yeah, thanks, Mr. Rajesh, for being with us this evening. My question is something which has happened in many top organizations. I've seen this happening. Now, you have a particular role which needs to be filled up, or you created a new post and looking for someone who can fit in that role. You have all your tools in place, you've identified a person, you have used all the strategies, you've gone to the stakeholders, discussed everything, and everyone said, yes, he's a tiger man, he's the right person for that role, okay? And then you appoint this person into that role. There's a big, what you call, media is there, and you announce that so-and-so, we have created this post, and we expect him to take the company to greater heights in the next 9 months to 1 year. Everything is fine, and it goes on. After 9 to 12 months, you realize this guy is something like what you call a round peg in a square hole. You know, it doesn't fit that role at all. And you've spent so much on his team, you've spent so much on travel, this, that, etc. And integrity-wise, yes, this guy is really good. He's performed extremely well in his previous role. That's the reason you people have selected. Now, how do you deal with such a senior person? You know, that role is too big, something like probably a global operations head or something. What do you think, sir? I mean, how do you deal in such a situation?
Oh, you muted? Yeah, Rajesh. Yeah, you can.
Okay, great. Thank you, Prakash. That's an amazing question. I have a question for you before I answer your question, Mr. Selvaraj. Is it more to do with how do you deal with the situation or how to avoid it?
No, how to deal with the situation.
Deal with it, okay.
Yeah.
All right, so it's more of damage control. This clearly is a case of what has happened is we've got somebody, we've invested a lot of time, development, and a lot of resources, of course. And you've obviously advertised to the larger business, and he or she has become a face of the organization, right?
Absolutely.
So it's more of now understanding how to, you have two choices now. One is you either groom this lady or gentleman, or you have to find a way to slowly weed that person out of the system. Now, if you weed the person out of the system, obviously you're going to scare a lot of your stakeholders. Oh, what has happened? Such a big leader. So how do we take this? Is this business unstable? So that's where you'll have to create a shadow resource for this person, depending on the kind of complexity or the gap that you see. You have to immediately start creating a shadow resource who will work very closely with this resource. The other thing that as damage control that needs to be done is to hire a shadow coach. A shadow coach is somebody who's going to work very, very close with such leaders, understanding key gaps in terms of deliverables, in terms of behavior, in terms of their own personality for that matter, and build a strong coaching curriculum. Now, again, all this will only work if the leader decides to develop himself or herself.
True.
If the leader is reluctant, then like I mentioned, we'll have to slowly weed this person out by building a stronger face. And this face has to be even more popular with your stakeholders. Otherwise, the business could be at a risk.
Thanks.
I hope I've answered your question.
Sure, definitely. That shadow resource or shadow coach, what you mentioned, in certain organizations, probably you're also talking external resource and external source, probably.
It has to be an external resource in terms of a coach. A shadow resource is somebody who is going to work very closely within the organization.
Internal, okay. Just a couple of seconds I'll take. If you look at certain organization, like for probably the defense, now we always talk what we call one up. Now you're given a responsibility, say a big responsibility. Now your deputy from day one is already trained in your shoes. So whether you go on leave, if some eventuality happens or something, you get shot in the line of fire or something, deputy just fits into the shoes. So there's no gap, there's no void. That's how the army deals with it. Thank you, Mr. Rajesh. Thank you so
Absolutely.
Thanks.
Do you see some bullet holes here and there?
much. No, even now.
I've been shot multiple times. That's what we as deputies do as well sometimes. So
Okay. Thank you, Mr.
Well,
Rajesh.
we
rightly
told
said,
you,
Mr. Sir.
call to
Wonderful. Thanks, David, for that question. That was an excellent question and wonderful answer. In fact, for me, I am listening to shadow coach. That's something really good. I've heard about life coach. I've heard about executive coach, or I've heard about other professional coaches, or career coach, or maybe a financial coach. But now it's coming here, the shadow coach, which is in such challenging situations, is where we need to really shadow off the person. So good. Thanks very much for giving us such updates. It really adds value. And just to share more about David Silveraj was earlier in Defense and ex-Army, and then he has now running a company called Finisher Facility Management Services, and having operations in Chennai, Bangalore, and Hyderabad. Thanks very much, David, for asking this question. And we have one more person to ask the question. Yes, thank you.
Thank you.
We have one more person to ask the question, is Ms. Varsha. So yes, Ms. Varsha, we give you an option to unmute, and also if you can turn on the video, that will help, or you can ask the question now. Yes.
Hello, Mr. Rajesh. Very good evening. It is wonderful listening to your insights. So I have a question in terms of an organization which is growing, so predominantly a startup, wherein you really don't have the system of learning and development, because they work more on the product. The initial few years are more into sales, bringing up the business and all of it. So how do you still, and that's a very volatile and a very risk kind of a stage they are into. But however, I think even there, successors or all these planning are essential. So what is your suggestion for such a kind of a setup, especially for startups, in your experience?
Good question, Varsha. Thank you for the question again, because your questions make me think as well. So being a part of a startup of late, and so one of the things that you will see with startups is that nobody cares about learning and development. Nobody cares about training. All that matters is how much are you able to churn, how many deadlines are you meeting, and at the end of it, that's that. And if you actually notice that most of your succession planning is also around that particular performance. Seldom we look at doing a little bit of profile analysis, personality analysis, role fitments. Role fitments is primarily about how good are you with that particular technology or any particular domain that you're at. So my simple suggestion for startups, if at all you're looking at identifying specific resources for your future roles, is once you identify your hypod group, and I'm guessing that most of your hypod group is based out of performers, you will not get ready-made leaders. You will have to groom them, and hence you will have to start looking at standard off-the-shelf leadership development programs. And look at how you tag it to their next level of promotions. Now, once you do that, you are able to start cultivating a habit of not just focusing on domain development, but also looking at an overall consulting approach, right? And some way, find a way to incentivize it if the business allows it, or probably just find a way to put it into a scorecard. That should do the trick.
Interesting, but just maybe it could be a debatable, or it could be a little more outside. But what I also have a perception, this is my perception again, as they are into the system, right? So we can bring this leadership kind of competencies or any kind of a program only at a little later point in time, once the business stabilizes, once we have to see the growth in the organization. So till then, the kind of setup or the culture that kinds of sets up in the organization is so different. And suddenly when you bring in, hey, you need to, get yourself skilled up for you to, not only we'll focus more on performance now, we would also look up at other competencies. That's where we also face a lot of resistance.
True.
Absolutely right, Varsha. That's exactly my first point, was that nobody cares about learning and development, right? Nobody really thinks about it at the initial phases. So I think it's a top-down approach with startups. I think your leadership needs to start believing that we need to focus on this particular area. Otherwise, it's never going to fly. you will always going to get into a loop of you making the effort of developing people and then you facing resistance and then going back into that phase where you talk to the leadership, people encourage people, then again you see lead participation. So it's a never-ending loop right now. So the strategy should be top down. I think your leaders should align with the idea of development of resources. And if that happens, you will be able to all these things that I just spoke about in terms of channelizing it into your role progressions and putting them into your scorecards. You need to have approvals for it. So obviously your leadership needs to align for all that, right? So that's what I'm doing.
Well said, and I resonate to what you say. Thank you so much.
You're welcome, Varsha. Thank you for the question.
Great. Thanks, Varsha. So for Rajesh, Varsha is a corporate trainer and she helps most of the corporate clients, in fact, in providing training programs with respect to emotional intelligence, communication, 1, 2, 3, 4, more, right? Right, Varsha? So good. Thanks that you are helping most of the corporates, helps really more. Great. Thank you. So I'm sure, yes, at this moment, there are no more questions or hands raised or none in the chat box, I feel. But yes, definitely, Prabhakaran has raised hands separately on offsite. Is it? Yes, Mr. Prabhakaran, one last question we'll take from Prabhakaran and then we need to summarize. So is that okay, Rajesh? Is that taking another couple of more minutes? Is it fine?
Oh, please, feel absolutely free.
Okay. Yeah, so thank you very much. So yes, Mr. Prabhakaran, over to you.
Thank you, Prakash. Thank you, Rajesh. First of all, thanks for the opportunity. My question is this: after every training program, our appetite increases. Say, either be it for leadership or any soft skill or anything. After that, if we don't find enough feed, then the training program loses steam. In all this succession planning, everything, the post-training program, after setting some steam in us, then how do we meet it? If there is a succession planning, somebody has to move away to make space for me. So if those things don't happen, how are we going to meet those people?
Right. So I'll answer this along with my daughter who wants to be on this call as well. All right. So pardon me for that. Work from home, you see. All right. So to answer that question, yes, I think it's a problem that we've had for an eternity. We train people. People are feeling encouraged. People are feeling motivated. They want to make a difference to the world, for that matter. But it's just a matter of a couple of months, and then that's it. People don't even remember, right? That's the usual human behavior. So if you look at it, since we've observed that, what we do is we call this a staggered learning approach, right? We've introduced something called a staggered learning approach. Now, what is a staggered learning approach? There needs to be, I hope, so there is this concept of feedback, which is called check-in and check-out, which means it's not just about meeting an individual once. You meet the individual, you find out what are the gray areas, and then you meet them back after some time, after giving them a solution, to check if the solution is working. So that's check-in and check-out. So we've applied the same with learning also through a staggered learning approach, which means it's no more a 1 day, 2 day program. It is spread across 6 to 7 months or even to a year, just like the way we plan executive coaching programs. And we connect all these programs to assignments. And every 2 months or every 1 month, depending on the kind of programs that we do, your SME meets them, does a recap, understands the practical challenges. And there are 2 toll gates. Just talking about what we do. We have 2 toll gates, which are primarily about project submission. Once you implement the knowledge that you have learned as an adult, it sticks with you. The chances of it sticking with you is longer. Whereas if I write an assessment, I will forget it 2 days later.
True.
Right? So what we believe in is, have you learned XYZ things? Good. So let me see an output of that learning. So one is through projects and other is to look at their key business drivers. By doing this, we are obviously able to close those gaps. You will see people not submitting projects. You will see people struggling with projects. You will see people struggling with business deliverables and so on and so forth. So we quickly close that loop in the second or the third phase. That's called a staggered learning approach.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
This is what we do for our management developmental programs, specifically for our managers and senior managers.
Rajesh Gar, are you doing it by yourself or with external support?
We have a combination, Mr. Reddy. So I obviously have a strong set of learning and development professionals who work with me in the organization. And of course, we also partner with professionals like Varsha. We just heard Varsha that she's a EI coach. So we also work with external folks for top leadership as well as some specific personality development courses.
But I mean, we should be having some big budget for this. That is
nothing comes free, Mr. Reddy. What to do?
That's what again, as and once the budget is given again, ROI will come.
Yes.
When do we measure?
Very good.
When do we see the difference?
Very good, Mr. Reddy. But before that, I just want to quickly check with Mr. Prabhakar if I have answered his question clearly. And then I will take Mr. Rajesh's question, Mr. Reddy's question. Is that okay, Mr. Reddy?
Yeah, I'm fine. I'm good. Okay.
Yes, Mr. Prabhakar, I hope I've answered your question.
Yeah, I've given the option to unmute Prabhakar.
I will. Perfectly, you've answered. Thank you so much. The staggered learning is what will stay. Yeah, thank you.
Yeah. So
thank you. So, Mr. Reddy, back to your question about ROIs. So, the traditional or the legacy approach is to design programs and struggle to find a metric to define an ROI. What we usually do is we interpret the competency framework, we identify gaps, and we start doing it. We don't understand I don't speak for everybody, that there are some organizations who struggle to understand what is the business impact of it, right? So that level 5 of Kirkpatrick is missed out.
Correct.
The actual business outcome. Is there a revenue generation model? Is there a revenue impact? If it is a positive or a negative impact. At the end of the day, right, like you rightly asked, ROI is the billion-dollar question in the learning and development business, because every organization you go to, whether you are an employee or a freelancer, the first thing is, what is the effectiveness of this program?
Yes.
Sir, your people will do wonders. They will make amazing decisions. They will solve problems. No. What dollar? How much money are they going to save? How much time are they going to save? What is the efficiency? How will efficiency improve? How will time to competency improve? These are the questions that come to you. So you will have to work backward. First, identify the financial impact, identify the key business metrics that measure that impact, and then tag them to your learning journeys. And then have a quarterly or a monthly or a half-yearly review, depending on what your business needs are.
And as you rightly mentioned, we should be in a position to mention it in statistical numbers.
Yes.
Data is everything. Without data, nothing is tangible.
Yes.
Correct. Thank you.
Good, Mr. Reddy.
You're welcome, Mr. Reddy.
So thank you very much, Mr. Reddy. Thanks very much, Prabhakaran, for also asking the question. And Mr. Prabhakaran is from mybigbreak.com. So he gets the operations there in that company, who help people who want to shift jobs, or you're in a senior level position and you want to create your resume and you find it challenging. Prabhakaran runs this company called mybigbreak.com, or maybe he heads there. And people who wants to add on value services, definitely you can. Great. So thanks very much for those questions.
Nice meeting your acquaintance, Mr. Prabhakar.
Okay. I will just mute it again, but thanks very much, Rajesh, sharing it. So great. So members, and now is the time quickly we are going to summarize. It's already time for this episode's discussion, which we had on developing successors, a much more deeper insights and more questions. With a practical approach is what I'm able to sense here this time, Rajesh. Wonderfully done. So let's quickly go ahead and summarize for the benefit of all. Let me take the initiative to summarize what all we have understood. And then I would also request Mr. Pankaj, the managing partner from Bija Training, to share about how the CSR has started. So How before that, so the quick summary is number first, initially, Rajesh shared about the reactive and proactive. So most of the organizations are still in the reactive modes, hunting or headhunting people, what to do next. We have one employee left and then we don't have a position to be filled in. So for all these to get that last minute surprise is what we need to start this proactive approach of developing successors. And that's what Rajesh in his company started, what he feels, and then a lot of identifying the key talent. So how do you identify the success? What he's talking about, the word called high pods or the high potentials. So there are high potentials in every department. We need to identify them in each department as they work. And every the small organization or a big organization, irrespective of it, when they are able to move across, when they start defining or deploying this developing success model, I'm sure growth is always for them. So from there, we moved on to another aspect, that what are the key factors for it. So the first time he said that we need to start identifying competencies of people. Yes, there are people are, most of small organizations are there. They just because they worked in the organization for several years, that's in fact elevate them. But do they really have the competence to hold the next level position? Becomes a question mark. And that's what, in fact, Rajesh shared about. We are having a clear competence level mapping, and are they really able to identify the competencies for each and every level, right? For the top management to the junior management, do that. And for that, doing it, 360-degree assessment tools, we had balance scorecard, we had priority matrix and scalability matrix, and all of the tools. And definitely, every company needs to have certain competencies. If not, start defining them. But the two more aspects, which is very clearly told, is certain challenges when it comes, it becomes very, very difficult. So that's like people we want to develop, but they're at the end, they're not actually fitting the role. If they're not interested, that's when a shadow coach is required. And then last, we spoke about the ROI model of what he spoke. Level 5 of the Kirkpatrick model is ROI, and that's very, very necessary. Companies will start asking us about all these. These all are the nutshell about the key aspects from this developing successors. I'm sure for all the members as well as the visitors here today, you will definitely identify some key factors. We need to analyze our own selves. Where are we currently? Am I really being the success model? Do I have in our company? If so, if not, what do I need to do? So start thinking about these aspects, which will help you. So with all this, thanks very much, Mr. Rajesh, and I would request the managing partner from Bija Training to share a few words, Mr. Pankaj Vyas. So, Mr.
Thank you, Prakash. Thank you so much, and good evening, all. Good evening, everyone. So I take this opportunity to introduce Bija to all the esteemed guests. So Bija is the parent company to Leaders Connect, of which we are doing the CSR initiative, the Leaders Connect. So Bija is a training organization incorporated for sharing, improving, and developing skills and knowledge required in today's corporate world. Bija has grown to serve people to acquire the right attitude and transform them to become a better and a well-organized, respected human being. Bija's uniqueness stands for customizing the content to every industry based on their businesses and providing the training programs through management games, activities, and fun-based learnings. So all the training programs are done through pre and post assessments for checking the effectiveness and bringing the change and make the manpower effective at the workplace. So Bija does both in-house training programs as well as outbound training programs for all the corporate and B schools. Bija has a wide network of more than 100 established trainers pan-India who are specialists in soft skills and outbound training, conducts programs across India and abroad. So we do trainings across industries, across verticals. So we'll be sharing more about Bija training in coming days. Thank you so much. Right. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much.
Thanks, Prakash. Over to you.
Thank you very much, Pankaj, for such initiatives of CSR that really add more value. So with all the members and the visitors, yes, now is the time we are going to introduce our next leader. But before we introduce, I would request Mr. Prabhakaran to share the objective of this Leaders Connect so it adds more value, and then introduce our next week's leader. So yes, Prabhakaran, over to you.
Thank you, Prakash. Thanks. A big thank you to our Rajesh sir, who has honored us with this. Big and small, all organizations must plan ahead for succession. And the staggered learning program, which I will remember closely. Then shadow resource, shadow coach. It was just like playing chess. I mean, I could relate this to chess. Thanks for that question, David sir, and the answer, wonderful answer that came by. So it was a very engaging conversation, and thanks to you again, Rajesh sir, and thanks David sir for this wonderful this one, and Prakash for the recap that you gave, so that all those last benchers like me would come once again to read this session. And thanks for Mr. Reddy, in spite of your this one engagement, you've been answering those questions. Thank you so much. And before this one, before sharing about the next week leader, let me quickly share again the purpose of the community. For the visitors who are attending first time, Leaders Connect is an online leadership community where every week on a Wednesday from 6:30 to 7:15, we invite top management leaders from reputed corporate companies to share the solutions for our real-time issues, real-time problems, either on leading self or leading others or leading the business, like the way we interacted today with Rajesh sir. This Leaders Connect online leadership community does not stop with only sharing the solutions alone. Also, we have a reflection session on the last Wednesday of every month to track the learnings and convert them into clear-cut action plans and implement it. Here, we also network with the like-minded professionals who are interested in learning and growing. So that way, we actually leave that leaders create more leaders. If you wish to join the community, please click on the WhatsApp group link, which is on your chat box, and you will be able to join us, receive weekly updates, or you may call us on the number shared on the WhatsApp, and then we will add you onto the community. For the members, do remember to write your learning and action plan using your respective login credentials, and also connect with other members to the network. So let me introduce the next week leader, Mr. Sabir from Tata Power. Members who wish to be part of the panel discussion can give your names on WhatsApp group or kindly connect with Prakash. Please do click on the link given on the chat box to register yourself for the next week episode. And once again, it's a pleasure talking to you, Rajesh, and it was wonderful, very nice, very well spent time. Like every week, this also, I mean, this was another important session that we would cherish. So for our guests and all visitors, on your behalf, thanking our guest for the week, Rajesh Muthyalachetty. Thanks for being here, sir.
Thank you very much. Yes, I'll give the option to unmute.
Yeah, so thank you very much for the kind words, Mr. Prabhakar. Time well spent here as well. And I think most of these questions, I mean, though I hope I've answered most of them, are an eye opener for me. Some of these thoughts have been on the back burner, and all the questions that have come up has made me rethink about some of my strategies as well. So thank you for having me.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you very much, Rajesh.
We have a special thank you video for you, sir.
Yes. Yes, Manish, over to you for the thank you video.
Thank you. Thank you all. Meet you next week.
Yes.
Have
So,
a
Prabhakaran,
great
let's
week.
go ahead. Yes. So thanks all. So people, all the members who wish to stay back here for the networking, feel free to stay back for the networking. If you still have any more questions, we can still openly discuss amongst ourselves. That's what we network. And people who come here for the first time, now is the time you get an opportunity to introduce yourself as well if you wish to, and because time may be short, and this is the time for you to introduce yourself as well, and we can take it forward. So Rajesh, thanks very much once again on behalf of all the members and visitors. And if you wish to stay back in our networking, great. Else, it's also completely fine. That's be adding a lot of value, but it's all time for us. Yeah.
Sure, I can stay back if you want me to, Prakash, because it's an absolute pleasure to be a part of this group. So
it's been our pleasure.
Very
thanks,
happy.
So we will be having our members, we'll be having open discussion amongst our members where we'll be interacting with each other. Great. Thanks very much, Mr. Rajesh, for staying back. So yes, there are a couple of more members are in here today. We would like to request them to speak initially, and then we will take it forward. So yes, I've also given unmute to all participants as well, so that you all be able to unmute yourself before we speak. So yes, I would like to invite Ms. Aruna Damodaran first to share her experience about the episode. And if you like to introduce yourself, that will add value, Ms. Aruna.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes, Aruna, it's audible, please.
Yeah, like I can't switch on the video because my son is studying at the back, so I don't want to disturb him. Yeah, it was a nice session. This is my first session, and it's absolutely cool and composed, as I have said, Mr. Rajesh. Thank you so much, and I'm enjoying it. Yeah.
Thank you, Aruna.
Thanks very much, Aruna. I would like to introduce yourself, Aruna, that will add value to the community, and other members also would know more about you.
I'm a sales professional for more than a decade, and now I'm on my own. I'm a self-leadership coach and an author. Wonderful. And yeah, I'm a startup company. I've just started one company by name Base.
Oh, wow.
That's about me in short.
That's great. That's great. Thanks very much, Aruna, for being in, and that we look forward for you to keep attending more and more. Yeah,
Sure,
and
sure,
to help
sure.
us. And that's when we call it as creating more leaders, create more leaders. And that's how we all are there, learning from each other's insights, network with people, and let's invite more people so that we create more and learn more and grow more. So thanks, Aruna, for being in here. Great. So yes, who else would like to speak? Feel free to unmute yourself and introduce yourself and speak as well. And then go ahead. Yes, Rangarajan, please go ahead. I believe you raised your hand, Rangarajan. Okay, he's still having a challenge.
Yes, Prakash.
Yes, Rangarajan, go ahead.
Mishu, I am unable to ask the question.
That's okay. That point of time, I believe you had a technical glitch. I'd handled it with Rangarajan. That's okay.
Okay. My question is, if you want to go to develop people and everything will be fine. But if you go to corporate, there is a process called bell curve. Okay. If I am telling a person is excellent, I have to mandatorily tell a person is not good. Now, if you see in the current world, people are all having good competency, good learning. Telling he is not good is more tough than telling he is very good. So I want the people's viewpoint about the bell curve.
Good, good. So definitely, who would like to answer first? Maybe even we also have our guest, Mr. Okay, Prabhakaran also wants to answer. Yes, go ahead, Prabhakaran, please.
Maybe when Rajesh is around, my answering may not be appropriate, but yet I want to share my point. I wrote a small article long time ago. I mean, people are, we want to be very individualistic, and we want people to praise people for their individual talent. Putting them under a bell curve is a very, very unhuman or inhuman thought, I would say. That is my opinion. And we are not rats that we come from the same background and same breed and start behaving in a same fashion. To evaluate under a bell curve, I am against it.
But Prabhakaran, sir, on the contrary, in reality, if you could see, most of the corporates are still operating with the bell curve. And the performance management systems are run with bell curve, and only through the bell curve, they are bound to identify 2 or 3 people, even they have worked their best, they're bound to identify the low level.
Yeah,
Now,
it becomes a moving goalpost, right?
yes, agreed. In fact,
throughout the year we are talking about one thing. Having achieved this, I expected, but I see that the bell curve is against me.
Very true.
True. See, Rangaraj, just to add on to what Prabhakaran said and to answer to your question, Rangaraj, and what I would really share is, yes, definitely bell curve we need to identify. But that's when your rapport with your respective subordinates. I understand the question why you're asking this. We being a senior position person, and then your subordinates, you definitely need to do a rating scale when the performance management system comes. And it's the rapport what you build with your subordinate is what I really say that. And we need to make our subordinates understand that it's just not being that growth isn't all about always growing with designations. Growth is much more is what we actually need to make them understand. And those are certain tools we are just identifying. So when every leader in a company, such aspects they do, and they give them some clarity to the subordinates, I'm sure that's the way how we'll be able to interact more, develop more real leaders. And that's what I would share. Maybe Rajesh, you want to add on in points? Yes, you're also there, and then feel free.
Sure, absolutely. It will be a pleasure. So bell curve is a performance management tool, like it or not, it's here to stay. Well, I'll play devil's advocate to what Mr. Prabhakar just shared. Yeah, there are a lot of organizations who have done away with it, but they've just done away with the fact of bell curve. But eventually, there is an invisible bell curve people will still follow. For example, you will have a performer who's done exceptionally well in their current role. Promoting that person will not make any sense because you never know how they will perform in the next role.
Yes.
They might turn into a non-performer. And for all you know, like I mentioned in my comments earlier, some people just don't want to grow designation-wise. They just want to be an SME and they just want to do what they do best. If I'm a carpenter, I'm a carpenter for life. There is no senior carpenter or junior carpenter. Right? So why is there a bell curve in the first place? So to specifically answer Mr. Rangaraj's question, so bell curve is supposed to be used in a way to understand and channelize and bucketize the talent that needs to go into different developmental areas.
Yes.
All right. It's not supposed to be used as a tool which kind of brings down your real-time talent or brings down or demerits performance. It is just a tool for you to understand who goes into which roles. At the end of the day, there are these numbers that we'll have to manage. If you're paying somebody extra, somebody has to take the hit. That's how business works. And that's exactly why there is a concept of bell curve. So if somebody doesn't want to get promoted, somebody is not probably fit for the next role, there could be a performer, you will still not promote them for obvious reasons.
True. Rightly said, in fact. Wonderfully said, Rajesh. In fact,
it's just another perspective to the bell curve, Mr. Prabhakar.
Thanks to you for the response.
Good. So yes, so we have any more questions from the other members as well as the visitors who are in here for the first time, so that will help us.
I would want to appreciate Aruna for her book. I got that copy and it's a wonderful book. It's been late that I'm reading it now, and that is like a primer for financial management. I actually bought it to gift it to my son. He's 25 years, and that is really a wonderful book. Thanks, Aruna. That's a well written book and well organized book.
Wow, great. So the book you received. Okay, yes. I believe.
Prakash, should I put my perspective on bell curve?
Oh yeah, please, sir, definitely. Now there's purely networking time now, so we're just sharing our views. Official meet is completed and now just a networking. So please share and then go ahead. So in Dodla Dairy, how does it operate, sir? That will be adding value.
No, we were using now. We are not not do away, but as Rajesh mentioned, it is invisibly we are with bell curve. this bell curve, like, putting people 10 to 15 into, that extra, more than, what is that, outstanding.
True.
And 20% as very good.
Outliers,
And
outliers.
outliers and very good, and mediocre 60% average people.
Yeah.
And last 5% should be, asked to move or put them on PIP kind of thing, I
Yes.
think, it is very useful for any organization in the competitive world today. So companies should be resetting their, bars of expected performance, so that if they knock off this last 5%, the basic, percentage, performance expected percentage will goes up to the next level, So like that, if we keep on resetting our own benchmarks and trying to be competitive ahead of other players, so that we should always reset our benchmarks, so that we are working on ourselves to, to deliver better. So that way benchmark, this bell curve works. That's what I put across my views on this.
Definitely. See, again, how would people actually take it or accept this bell curve model? So much more
Again,
deeper we go.
Maybe that requires a lot of communication from the, what is that we are expecting from the company. That communication, lot of communication should go to the down the line, and people should understand in the same. Then I don't think people will have a different perspective on perspectives on this.
Well, wonderfully shared, Reddy sir. Superb.
Yes, sir.
Great.
Yeah.
Yeah, I would like to add there.
Yes.
I really buy this perspective from Reddy sir. Instead of annual, if we switch on to OKR or the quarterly type of reviews, that would give a faster, reach, the faster yield, and people will not be so badly affected, because what we set as KRA or KPI in the beginning of the year, after 12 months, most of the business dynamics, either it is changed or we are doing too well or too bad. So that does not hold true for the previous year's setting KPI. In the due course, if you keep shifting the goalpost, then that is another hazard. So end of the year, you set some expectations, don't meet them, that would be a problem. Instead, if it is staggered,
yes,
quarterly, OKR type of every quarter, that would be a better approach, is my feel.
Correct, sir. As you said, if you look at the like tools like the success factors and all, now the concept has come continuous performance management system.
Yes.
So it's ongoing every month, every quarter. It's not one day affair. As and when something to be given as a feedback, you are updating your team. So I think now we are in that era that, as you rightly mentioned, it should happen on regular basis, not year-end formality.
Rightly said. Thanks very much, Reddy, for sharing it. So we have a couple of more people. In fact, I believe we can also invite them if they would like to share. I believe Mr. Rajesh Chavan, is it? Mr. Rajesh Chavan is there, one who has joined us today. Mr. Rajesh Chavan, if you'd like to unmute yourself and speak or introduce yourself, we give you an opportunity now.
Sure. Thanks, Prakash. Well, I've been into the supply chain and procurement for long, actually. I was previously President Singapore handling the procurement supply chain. Then moved to heading group head for Qatar Airways Doha.
Okay.
Into procurement supply chain. Coming back to India, worked for Raymond's for some time. There was huge manpower turnover due to COVID. Surprisingly, such big company with a high tag, and suddenly one man handling CMD, more of a kind of a proprietorship, doesn't acknowledge the experience. It was a big setback. But yeah, again, nothing to say more on that. But then currently, yeah, the impact has really badly affected, and opportunities being checked out, honestly. But good experience in procurement supply chain have given a lot of optimization to the company. Proud to say that. Yeah.
Great. Thanks, Rajesh. In fact, for being in here. In fact, as I'm sharing now in Raymond, thanks very much for doing it. I wanted you to get connected to Mr. Umesh, right? That's what we had a discussion. So For the other members here, in fact, few members have left, Rajesh, so for time being, because even Mr. Umesh has left for the day, but he had. But as committed, I will connect you to Mr. Umesh. It will add a lot of value to you. And how I know for the other members, how do I know Rajesh Chavan is again through LinkedIn? And we were just getting connected to each other, and that's how I know him. And we just, this platform now, I'm sure you, Rajesh, you would have attended the episode of how it has been. So it's more of we help each other, network with each other, as well as we take it forward. But Rajesh Chavan, you can always meet Mr. Prabhakaran. He is from, he's already here on the screen, you can see. He's from mybigbreak.com. So he helps most of the top management people to redefine the resumes and share it to them. Mr. Prabhakaran, you share more about your service that will add value rather than me sharing it. Please go ahead, Prabhakaran. What do you do so that it may help, in fact, Rajesh Chavan as well?
Thank you, Rajesh. Thank you, Prakash.
Yeah.
Actually, we go by a simple framework, a very successful framework. We target the resumes to the aspirations that we carry.
Okay.
So there is a lot of things that we carry as baggage in our so-called resumes that makes it very really boring and not to the point. So we actually prune all of them out, keep it only on an employer's perspective as to we are now in a grown-up stage, and this is what he is looking at, and this is what he wants to use for the next 3 to 5 years. That being the objective, our narrative also should be limited to the job that we are aspiring for.
Okay.
In a nutshell, this is how we deal with this.
Correct. Yeah. Well, I'll be in touch with you after this, maybe.
Sure.
You know, we can speak in detail. Yeah.
Feel free, Mr. Rajesh Chavan, so that we'll be able to interact with Mr. Prabhakaran, and I'll also connect you to Mr. Umesh. Umesh is, as I told from, he is the global supply chain head from Hitachi Energy Limited. So he also will be able to, through his connections, he'll also be able to help you in terms of where and how and what could be done for these roles of supply chain. Yeah.
Sure.
Okay. Thanks very much.
Yeah.
What type of product you are looking for, sir?
Sorry?
Yeah, Mr. Rangarajan, go ahead.
Rangarajan.
Yeah, you're asking me, Mr. Rangarajan?
Sir, what type of products you are looking for in the supply chain?
See, my experience has been into, if you see, manufacturing, retail, agro-based, and all kind of, because my experience is huge, into 20 years plus experience. So I have been hands in all kind of a product. But to say, importantly, textile, apparel, and manufacturing are the main key products, which again, you know, supply chain portion remains the same. It is only product shift of a product, and how you application of mind is important. Decision making is important. That is what we do.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. My purpose of the question is Nash. I'm working in Nash as a manager in the production. Okay.
Okay.
We are in the manufacturing of ATM machines, and we are now moving into products. Instead of making Nash is becoming a sheet metal company. Instead of sheet metal, they are moving into products. So that I thought, if you want anything, I can support you as a product.
Yeah. Again, you know, again, see, given the experience, as I said, you know, you name it. I mean, it's only a label, but then there is an upper hand, and on a senior level, aerial. If you see aerially, this is all hand in hand with the stakeholder analysis. You can say cross function. You can say. So it doesn't at this level. It doesn't matter how you can project yourself. It is, you can also say me as a project management guy. You know, you can also ask me, I'm a process improvement guy. So it is how the organization requires, and we can execute in that manner.
True.
Yeah.
Right, sir. Great, Rajesh. So definitely we can always keep meeting. So in fact, there are many more members are there whom you always can meet. So
Sure.
Yeah, David, any other points you'd like to add on from your side, as well as we're coming close to the end of the networking session for this week? Any other points to add on or share? Any offers or any needs to be shared? Please feel free,
now
members.
My grandson has been troubling me to get out of this call. I'm just waiting.
Feel free,
If there's anything,
David.
definitely I'll share. Yeah, sure.
Yeah, feel free in case you have your grandson is calling. I know it's dinner time for you, so please feel free. Take care. We'll again meet upcoming week, and we need to discuss a couple of more points, and we will discuss about. Hey, we missed on sharing about the people for the Chennai's offline meet, correct?
Sure.
Yeah. So Prabhakaran, we are planning to meet
we
on
missed
19th.
Prakash.
Pardon?
We missed Prakash. You missed it. You were supposed to share it.
Yeah, I missed it. True. Okay, let's take it up. So 19th is what Prabhakaran is there. Who else is there? Mr. Reddy is from Hyderabad. But Suresh is there. Suresh, Aruna. Okay, we'll put it in the group, sir. That will add value.
Better. Yeah.
We'll put in the group, and we want to highlight that 19th will have an offline.
I think I thoroughly enjoyed your session, Mr. Rajesh, today. Whatever we discussed, it's. I mean, I never been in HR role at all. I used to be called for discussions whenever there's a union issue because I handle facilities for a lot of corporates. Other than that, the depth into which you went and the points you brought out were really big eye opener to me. Thank you so much. Personally, I really gained a lot.
Thank you, Mr. Sarvanan. Pleasure's all mine.
Shadow coach.
Great. So great then. So I believe it's already time for us to come to the end for this particular week. So thank you, Rajesh, once again. Thank you all the members who stayed back till the end of the networking. And please feel free to keep inviting more other leaders and it will add more value. Thanks, Aruna. Thanks. Bye-bye. Thank you very much. And meet you all again next week. Until then, take care and keep inspiring more leaders, keep inviting more leaders. Take care. Thank you all and have a nice evening. Bye-bye.
Bye, everyone. Please take care.
Thank you.
Thanks, Shadagwa.
Thank you.
Prakash,
Yes.
are we going to discuss about that 19th Jan on next session or after Susan information?
No, I will now put it in the group, main group. So I this information will go into the main group and then let's take it forward. Yeah.
Okay.
Sure. Thank you. Superb. Great. Thank you, Suresh, for being in. I may miss to please feel free to talk, huh? That will add value.
Sir, I'm in bus right now. I'm unable to talk. That's why I'm just hearing all those conversations. Yes.
Okay. Good.
Yes, sir.
The more you speak, the more better it will become for you, Suresh. Okay. Yeah.
Yes, those timings only. It's very difficult.
We are still in the bus, is it? Oh.
Yes. I'm traveling to Arcot.
Yeah. Travel safe. Okay.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
Thanks for being in the end, till the end. That really helped and move a lot. Yeah. Good.
Okay, sir. Yes, thank you.
Take care, Suresh. Bye. Bye. Manish, kindly end the meeting.
Okay, Prakash, I'm ending the meeting.
Thank you. Thank you, Rajesh.